Welcome back to Behind Enemy Lines. Terry and Mike, Thursday night. Trying to keep you wait. So again, we're late, so apologize. You guys better be used to that by now. So sorry. We're late. Technical problems, not working on Facebook, on the wrong Rumble channel. But we'll fix that eventually someday. So today we have my good buddy Chad. Um, Chad asked us to interview a gentleman from Texas named Paul Bondar. And he's going to be joining us in about, I don't know, maybe, well, we're late, probably in 4 minutes. I'm
He's
going to
already
read.
on.
Oh, hey, Paul. I'm going to read Paul's bio here. I guess he's in the queue. So, anyway, again, every time I do this, I say I have never read this much in college and in high school together when I do these bios. So, stand with me here. So, Paul's a businessman, a community orientated figure whose career spans entrepreneurship, philanthropy, civic involvement. His work in the private sector shaped a reputation built on accountability, direct communication, and focus on practical problem solving. Bardar often emphasizes themes such
Uh-oh. Terry might have just frozen. Oh, you're back. You're back. You're good.
And strengthening the connection between elected officials and the communities they represent. His decision to enter the public life reflects his views that leadership remain accessible and grounded in the everyday concerns of Texans. Throughout his professional life, Bondar has been involved in initiatives centered around service, local engagement, and supporting families and small businesses. Those who have worked with him describe him as a results-driven approach and willingness to challenge systems he believes that are no longer serving the public effectively. His campaign message highlights priorities such as economic stability, border security, which is huge to us, to everybody. We're going to talk a lot about that tonight. Education, which is huge to us. Same problems everywhere, even in Texas. And restoring the trust in government institutions. I think I want to talk about the mosques in Texas as well. As this race develops, Bondar is running against a guy named Jace Yarborough, Air Force veteran and attorney whose background includes affiliations with several longstanding conservative legal policy institutions. These connections with the Federal Society and the Claremont Institution and other national organizations led some observers to describe him as aligned with the more traditional establishment, which we don't like here, oriented networks within the conservative politics. This contrast of backgrounds has become part of the broader conversation that different pathways to leadership represented in this race. Holy cow. Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Can you all hear me pretty good?
Yeah, we can hear you good.
All right.
Yep.
So the bottom line, you read a lot of fancy words. You know what? You want the cliff notes on this?
Yeah, because I used
yeah.
AI.
Yeah. Cliff notes is our political system's a scam, a sham, and a kangaroo court. And a lot of these elections are just liquidity events where private equity individuals inject money on a whole bunch of candidates so they can get a bunch of puppets in DC. There you go. That's our political system. I can give you names. I can give you FEC filings. I can talk about it in great detail. But if you ever have any viewers that are saying, "Oh, we had such high hopes. This was a nice-looking young man, and he got polluted when he went to DC. Oh, DC is so corrupt." Guess what? He got polluted in order to get to DC.
Mhm.
Okay, that's what's going on. It's a private equity deal where people are investing in the candidates, and those puppets are then going to be fed like dogs to those masters. And the voters wonder, well, how come they're not serving me? Well, because you cannot have two masters.
Yeah. So what'd be good is a little snapshot of who you are outside of the big words, your family, if you have children, because the education. I got involved in politics because of my kids. We're at war for our kids and stuff. And what really triggered you to say, hey, I got to jump in this race.
I think what really triggered me, I had a whole lifetime of interest in politics. I have a political science degree, a sociology degree, economics degree. I studied, I got a public administration. Year and a half as an assistant city manager. I was 21. I wrote the first rental code enforcement policy. And then I woke up and said, if you want to make a lot of money and work hard, it's not in government, right? And I got into the financial services, and I got into insurance, and I was able to being independent, I was able to get deals done between the bureaucracy of the insurance company and the entrepreneurial spirit of the client. They did that for almost 2.5 decades. And I started a company with one employee out of a hole in the wall office. And I was able to, through becoming a student of the game, I was able to grow that to be able to do over $1 billion of sales in my career and get bought out by a very large agency who said, hey, I'd rather own you and get your intellectual capital and have you as a teammate than try to compete against you. And I think that's what's wonderful about our free market. Now, our government acts as a monopoly where they don't really care. And it's kind of our way, the highway, because what we have is we have elected officials who really don't serve the public. There is no competition in government, and there's really no competition in our political fake campaign systems for the most part. And I'll tell you why. I got 2 words: dark money. Dark
Yeah.
money. My mission is going to be, these people that talk about term limits. Term
Mhm.
limits is the weed that you see, but the root that causes all the problems and why people are frustrated with term limits is dark money. I'll give you
Yeah.
an example real quick. Let me give you an example real quick why. I have to go around and I have to report every $3,500 donation we would get, which would be a max donation per individual. And that's not easy. It sounds like a lot of money, 3,500 bucks. But when you have a guy or a group of guys that can dump in $1.5 million and you don't know where the money is coming from, it's a little thing called super PACs that don't disclose them. And they then have shell corps that are layered so that they can purchase ads out of these shell corps. And I'll give you a number right now because you might want to know it. It's C009379094, the strong pack. That's the jokers that have put almost $1.5 million of dark money against me in my race. This is what's wrong with our electoral system because we don't know who is behind this money. And if that person wins, your next congressman is Congressman Dark Money.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you guys got one of the best examples in the whole country down there in Texas with one of my favorite rhino punching bags, Eye Patch McCain. Dan Crenshaw. Everybody had high hopes for him when he ran initially. He said all the right things. He seemed to be a strong conservative candidate. Even Rush Limbaugh had him on. Rush Limbaugh never has guests, except for maybe the president or somebody running for president. Occasionally, he has the guy from used to have the guy from Tunnel to Towers on once a year to help him raise money. But yeah, this guy, the minute he got to D.C., he sold us all out, and now he is part of the problem. He's part of the deep state.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the playbook, guys. And I can tell you, these guys are packaged like a Hollywood actor, and their backstory looks fantastic. Who wouldn't like a military veteran?
Yeah.
It sounds great, and they're very articulate. And if it was a beauty pageant or a oratory event, you'd be most impressed.
Oh my God,
When
it sounds like somebody in Illinois, Chad. Same thing, same thing, same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we need to do is we need to unpack the rhetoric, and we have to look at the money. And I encourage every voter to look where the money is coming from and to identify the PACs. Because as I said to many people now in interviews, when my dog is being fed by one individual that comes to my house, pretty soon that dog minds that individual. And you can only serve one master, right?
Mhm.
You can't serve multiple masters.
Yeah.
And pretty soon my dog will start favoring the person that feeds him.
Yep.
Our politicians are no different. Whoever feeds our politicians is who they will serve.
Mhm.
And so this is a systemic problem. I'm not crying about my one particular race. What I am trying to do is shine a light on the insidious, disgusting swamp system, because we got endorsements that dropped for this guy, and I'm no dummy. I can add 2 + 2. Some people might think I'm dumb, but somehow I've been able to, get my company and get to where I am. And now I'm in the political space, and I'm finding some things out there too. But you start looking at the same endorsements, the same PAC behind the same person, with the same profile. You start understanding that this is actually a cottage industry.
Yeah.
What it is it's guys that want to put chips on all the different numbers on the roulette wheel so that they can get a slate of candidates in office. And that is the synopsis of our political system, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, and it's very frustrating. So outside of the financial aspect of controlling our politicians, on both sides, Some of these other issues, like, do you have any priorities, like, borders, border security, education, outside the funding? Is there any things that
Well,
surface to the top that's really a priority to you? I know
let
there's
me
many
give
that are
you
out challenging.
Yeah, let me give you just a little bit of where I stand on things. Our educational systems need to be educational facilities, not indoctrination camps. We
Hmm.
need to ban Sharia law. We have a crisis in this country because we have globalists that are funded or funding NGOs who act as string or strongmen to bring in all this different diversity, equity, and inclusion to water
Yeah.
down our American culture and our Texas spirit. And our kids are at a crossroads right now. We're becoming foreigners in our own country. And there is absolutely no place for Sharia law in this country. We have one land, we have one law, it's the Constitution, and that is the law of the land, and that is what must be followed.
Hmm.
and and I'm very, very, very firm on that. Now, the economy, we don't have a revenue problem; we have a spending problem. We need to be backed by something. If we're not backed by gold, maybe Bitcoin. But the idea that the Fed can just print money and inject it into
Yeah.
our economies so that they can steal our wealth is absolutely criminal. And that's why senior citizens have been absolutely struggling. You know, 300 billion went to Ukraine. Then we had all that PPP money that went in between all the money and the economy being stopped, and everybody knows inflation is a definition of too many dollars chasing too few goods. Think
Yep.
about they knowingly started an inflationary arson event when they did that, and they put all that money into our financial systems. And that's why hamburgers went from $12 to $22. It was a great train robbery of Americans.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the bottom line is, like, Congress right now is just totally disconnected from the reality where the rest of us are right now. You know what they're doing right now? Instead of passing the SAVE Act in the Senate, they're having a dog Mardi Gras parade.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I was kind of surprised. I was in a meeting recently that showed the map of the mosques throughout the country, and I was shocked to see how much red. There were little red dots that were just populating all over Texas, which
Yeah.
is like, I was shocked. And then I'm hearing the governor is getting money from some of those scum. Is that true? I mean, I know the mosques are there. I know that's true. But is Governor Abbott turning back to the corruption and the money that you said? Is he turning a blind eye to some of this?
Well, that's a question that only Governor Abbott can actually answer.
Hmm.
I'll just say this: Doc P. Chambers has endorsed me, and I've endorsed Doc P. Chambers because I'll say this: Texas needs to be number one in football, not Moss, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and oh, Captain, my Captain, this
Yeah.
has happened under your watch, and I think Greg Abbott's done a lot of great things in Texas. I'm
Yeah.
very thankful that we don't have the JB Pritzker of Texas. But here's the problem:
Hmm.
we need to do better, and Texans deserve better. And for
Hmm.
us to be number one in Moss, government needs to be run like a corporation. The fact that there's
Hmm.
accountability. If the CEO does not have profit, and the company is struggling, what happens? There's a thing called accountability.
Yeah.
Instead, what we have is we have a war chest, and we have dark money that goes into our system where people are untouchable, and we don't have accountability in government.
Hmm.
But when we have two things about Governor Abbott that I don't agree with, we're getting overrun, and this has happened on his watch with Moss. And also, initially, I thought it was great to bus these people into the deep blue cities to give them a taste of their own immigrant problems. As I reflect on that, I've changed my mind, and I thought about it. He was actually aiding and abetting and acting as a connecting flight, like a bus or a plane. And what should have happened is all these people at the border should have been rounded up, they should have been held, and they should have been turned around and kicked out of America. Because now, how many billions are we spending on ICE having to go around and find them? And to me, that was poor. That was poor decision, and it looked cool. It felt cool at the time to stick it to blue cities because we're tired of immigration problems here and we want them to feel that pain.
Hmm.
But really, we were actually inflicting more pain on Americans and only hurting ourselves with that action. And so that's a bad action. That actually pushed people and connected them further. And maybe that's what the Democrats wanted all along. And he took the bait. I don't know. But those two
Yeah.
issues are big issues that I have a problem with, and that people that know me know I'm not a party guy that's going to be a puppet or a rubber stamp. I'm going to honor and applaud and appreciate the wonderful decisions that folks make, but just like me in the boardroom, I wanted some dissension on things that were not right so that
Mhm.
we could evolve to get to the right answer and have a good result. In politics, it's just about having a bunch of yes man lick boots
Yeah.
and oh, and now all of a sudden, Paul Bondar, you're out. You criticize, you agree on almost all policies, but you criticize too. So we're going to endorse somebody else, that kind of thing. Well, that's not what Ronald Reagan said. Ronald Reagan said if we agree with somebody 80% of the time, we're still all Republicans, and we should have the ability as a party to be able to have free thought and not be the Borg or robots. And we should be able to have that ability so that we arrive at the best policy outcomes for the public and the citizens rather than be a bunch of bootlickers.
Yeah, so I want to share because I had the conversation with Chad. I heard him chuckle in the background there earlier, so I think he could hear me, right? We had a conversation about Abbott, exactly what you said, and I told Chad, I live here in Chicago. I was the Venezuelan hunter. The left hates it. I'm Venezuelan hunting. I go confront them and stuff. And I'm like, give out, not me, but give them, Chicago and those leftist scumbags, what they want. You want sanctuary city, sanctuary state, and I don't expect your constituents in Texas to have 20 million illegals there. And I and correct me if I'm wrong. I was one of the few people in the country that objected to Biden's ballot. I had a being on our ballot here. I had a debate in front of his attorney, just kind of goofy, and so Congress, I I said he didn't belong on the ballot because he provided comfort and aid to our enemy,
Mhm.
Biden. How does that affect Texas? Well, um, they had remain in Mexico, and he didn't listen to that, and the Supreme Court said you could do that. And then the other one I use as example was Texas, right? He forced Texas to not be able to close their border. I mean, he forced Texas. So I don't know, and maybe that he could have really pushed these people across the border based on that bullshit that Biden did, right? So I don't know if he had the authority and the power to do that based off of that Supreme Court ruling. And the thing I do agree with you wholeheartedly, and I say this all the time, is that we have all these drug mules. Everyone talks about the drugs and the fentanyl, right? I'm a Catholic. I'm not a good Catholic. Catholic Charities was the distribution arm of the cartel of moving people from your border to the city of Chicago. They were no different than a drug mule. And when I first started confronting the buses in Chicago, big white buses, I would go to the train station because Mayor Johnson, for political purposes, said, "We're not letting these buses. Abbott, it's all Abbott's fault. It's all his fault. He's sending them here, right?" And he did that in the very beginning, right? And so when I would go to the train station, be all these Venezuelans would be dumped off. They don't speak a lick of English. They got their phones with their translators, and they're supposed to take the train downtown to Chicago, and there was no handlers, none. They just dumped them off because, hey, why should you guys pay extra money for babysitters? Then I started seeing the buses coming in with two handlers. I would go and try to talk to these Venezuelans with my Spanish accent. And these handlers are like, "Don't talk to him." They don't even speak English. And a black guy from Vegas and an ex-army guy. I later found out they were getting $480 a day plus expenses, right? And I knew that wasn't Texas, right? I knew that wasn't Governor Abbott. You guys spending $1,000 a day for these guys to babysit. That was the NGOs. That was
Yeah.
Catholic Charities. So in the beginning, he pushed, I don't know how many. I know we had 1,480 buses that came to Chicago. I don't know how many were from Texas and how many, but I can tell you with absolute fact, the first flows were all, they had no handlers. All of a sudden, they got these handlers protecting them, right? And they're coming with tickets to take the train and all this other bullshit. So, tell me if you can elaborate on, could he do what you said? Could he have the opportunity after that Supreme Court ruling that Biden went to the Supreme Court, actually kick them across the border?
I have this romantic feeling that Texas is a strong independent state, and frankly, we're almost still, you know, we didn't forget our heritage. And I think
Right.
sometimes we need to be able to say, forget you, Joe Biden, I'm not listening, and
Mhm.
have the spine and the balls to stand up and make state rights an issue again and make it popular
Yes,
again
I
and go
agree
to
with
the
that.
ball again and say, I'm the frickin' governor. This is my state of the most powerful state in America. You know, get bent. But
Yeah,
Yep.
instead, we placate, and if he would have done that, the people of Texas would have put a statue of him
yeah,
probably in every big city because you're fighting for the people, and you're not a pawn, and you're not weak, and you're not taking it in the shorts from Joe Biden. And
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we used to do that in this country. We used to have big clashes where
Mhm.
people did those types of things. I would just, as a leader, I would just say that that's probably what I would have liked to have done,
I agree with
and
you.
I'm
Yeah,
putting myself in that role and said, "Forget you. I don't care.
yeah.
States' rights get bent."
Yep. You know what, Paul? It's no different than Illinois being a sanctuary state and city. I mean, it's supposed to be against federal law. It's no
Yep.
different than us. You know, we had Pritzker and Johnson. I follow every federal law. I don't break any federal laws. You know, he's trying to deny the fact that he is breaking, with the sanctuary state. But
Yeah,
they sell weed all over Chicago, in Illinois, and I don't give. Honestly, it's a different discussion. That's a federal law they're breaking, right? So to
yeah,
your point, why can't we break federal laws? You know, if Biden comes back and says, "Hey, screw you, man, we're dumping these wetbags. We're dumping these illegals, where they came from." So he could have done that, and he could have worried about going to court and fought it in a big battle and all this stuff.
Well,
So I agree with that.
yeah.
well,
You
remember the Biden regime did sue Texas multiple times. They went after Abbott when he had the barriers that were out there on the Rio Grande,
Yeah,
and they were making a wall out of containers, shipping containers somewhere, and he
yeah,
sued and had
yeah.
him do that too. And there might have been a third suit. Now that I think about it, I'll look it up here. Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, no, no, no. I think there was some effort that was put into it, but ultimately, when you're challenged, my question is do you back down or not? And that's I
Mhm.
think that I'm not trying to be hypercritical of everything, but let's look at it. Sometimes you can go, 8/10 of the way, but then you give up, or you don't dig in, or there's a fight,
Mhm.
and you don't fight it till the end. And again, I'm just saying, I think the good people of Texas and the people that live in the United States of America would have appreciated
Big time.
a little bit more fight and a
Always.
little bit more. Let's look at COVID. Let's look at the cowards in COVID that went along, and there was hardly anybody that stood up in COVID-19, and that's another thing that I think some people in Texas are a little bit upset about with Abbott as well. Not trying to pick on Greg Abbott again, he's done a lot of great things and he's been a good leader, but we need to be the best we can be, and picking out the areas where we can improve upon will only make our next leaders or future leaders in other states, I hope, a better product. And to just brush over and not have accountability on certain decisions that were wrongful, we don't learn from our mistakes. I
Mhm.
was disappointed during COVID. You asked me initially what really got you politically charged. I gave you a lot of information. Let me tie back the answer. COVID-19 really ticked me off.
Mhm.
There's a thin line between tyranny and
Mhm.
the orchestration we saw between all levels of government and all countries in the world
Yeah, it's great.
blew my mind. And
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm still waiting for justice for Anthony
And
Fauci.
you know what scared me was that there were so many fucking sheep, so many sheep, right? I mean, it was shocked. You know, I would go to Home Depot, like, I would not wear a mask, and I had my
Yeah.
kid put it on. He was only 9, 10, I think, put it on his chin. It's like, "Fuck you guys, man." They would get mad. It's like, they call the police on me many times.
When I had to
And
wear a
and
mask on an airplane, I would write profanity on the mask.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
I had yeah, I don't wanna say on my show here. I had some crazy ones too, I wore on purpose, but it was like it scares me to see all these sheep, like Texas is like the tough guys, right? Texas reputation,
Yeah.
and they kind of fell in line. They're falling in line with the schools too. It's all over America, which is just disgusting in itself. And I think because
Yep.
every generation, since my grandparents came from Italy, and every generation does better, and you want to do better for your kids, right? And my kids, and you try not to spoil them, but they have so many more things that we got soft. We got soft. They're scared. I couldn't get one father to hold a damn sign with me about the point. I got the BJ pictures right here from genderqueer. I spent $350. Got a girl wearing a strap on and a boy on his knees performing oral sex to the strap on. And I couldn't get one father to have the courage to hold these signs I spent all this money on. because they were scared about their jobs, scared about their reputation, and it's like, you know what? I did lose my I did lose my job after 23 years in February. Fine, because of the porn, I survived that, and then I hosted Tom Homan here, and they said I hate poor innocent asylum seekers, but I couldn't find any file. I told my wife, I don't want to lose my job when I was in the middle of this. Of course, I don't want to lose my job, but you know what? I don't want to lose my country. And the reason we're in this situation is nobody's standing up, like you're standing up to run for Congress. We're in this situation because no one's standing up to help us fight for our kids. And that's got to stop. So I'm assuming that's part of why you got involved in the COVID and what you're doing, being a wealthy businessman, sacrificing to do this.
Yeah, this is a terrible business decision to
Yeah.
go run for. I mean, there's
Yeah.
two ways to run for office. You run with it with integrity, and you use money and raise grassroots money, or it's a liquidity event where the machine injects you with a nice little bunch of funds in a pack, and you get yourself some pretty little endorsements. And those are the two models that I think exist. Or you just become, there's a third option where you're a nobody and you don't really do anything and you're never going to get votes. So,
Yeah.
and there are some candidates like that as well. But
Yeah.
that's really the choices as I do a flowchart analysis on the political system as far as what your type of candidates are. And if you're one that's going to be a viable candidate that's not plugged into the system, they're going to try really hard to spend a lot of money against you because you're not
Yep.
serving their interests.
Mhm.
And this is about looking for W-2 employees to serve in a corporate board environment through an election process, which is more of an appointment interview process based on what you're willing to do as a W-2 type employee, not an elected official. And that's the
Yep.
state of our union.
Mhm.
Oh
If
yeah.
it disturbs you, it should, because what I said earlier, that our system was essentially a kangaroo court. Essentially, the majority of times it is. And then if you do get elected, boy, I bet when we get in and we win, you're going to be, there's not going to be a ton of people that are on the same wavelength as where you're on. So that's our political system. It's really, not of the people, by the people, for the people.
Mhm.
Uh, Sponsored in part by certain people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Well,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the other thing too is, if you manage to succeed and get through the primary, well, a lot of times they try to kill it at the primary. I mean, this is the big problem with the congressional and Senate campaign funds. So I host another program here on X American News in the morning, and my co-host there is Derek Evans. He was running. He was in the state legislature in West Virginia prior to going to the Capitol on January 6th. Well, he ran again. He ran at the federal level for a House seat. He started to pull ahead. And then 2 weeks before the election, the campaign congressional fund sunk $2 million into the race so they could keep a rhino in that seat. This is a grassroots effort. He didn't have a whole lot of money to spend. I think he had a little under $1 million total that he'd spent throughout the entire campaign for the year that he raised and spent on his own. They come in, airdrop $2 million so they can keep a safe rhino deep state vote in the House, somebody that they can control. And we're seeing them do this right now. They're freaking out right now in your state again down there with Brandon Herrera, now that he's pulling ahead of Tony Gonzalez because of the scandal of these text messages came out of him texting this intern that killed herself by setting herself on fire, or can't, whatever it was, employee of his. And they're freaking out because they don't want to lose cannon like that. And they're doing the same in other states right now. Anybody that's independent, that is really grassroots, is coming from the people, there's going to be some level of accountability, possibly. They don't want to deal with them at all.
No, you're absolutely right, and that's why we see, like I said, almost $1.5 million in dark money. Here's the one saving grace. I'm fair and far between you don't have candidates that can fight that too well, but the dark money doesn't spend as well on ads. And so for every dollar that I spend, they have to burn up about two. And so because the packs, they're not as efficient in that. So we have a real bona fide chance in our election, given the circumstances. But that doesn't make it any less disgusting, because what's going on and what I'm fighting, pretty much every candidate, I would say, across America who doesn't kiss the ring is going to be fighting the same thing.
Yeah.
And so this isn't, and that's what I want to articulate clearly. This race isn't just about me. This isn't just about me getting elected. What this really is this is identifying, understanding how the chessboard is slanted. And if people understand that, then the first thing to do is that they demand campaign finance reform. And I would say step one is we need to know where the money is coming from. If we don't know where the money is coming from, we have no idea who these people are beholden to. My guess is that there's people that put money on Democrats and Republicans alike.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
they're business people. It's about hedging bets.
Yep.
And it's really, if the public knew that the same money that goes to my opponent may go to, some crazy nut job liberal through the same donors, which they don't want to have that be known, but the donors want control over, they want to have control over both the Democrats and the Republicans. This is my guess on how the system works. And the reason we have this dark money is so that people can't call them out and say, well, this candidate is also getting money from the same person that gave money to a raging Democrat nut. And that would then disqualify a lot of people. So they have a cloak where money is not known. And this is what is absolutely disgusting, that allows for these people to absolutely just rig and drive through the candidates that they want because of the lack of transparency. So I'm telling you right now, you want to save this country, you got to blow the whistle on transparency. Maybe PACs are okay, but they're sure as hell not okay if you don't know who's behind them. And whether they're okay or not is the next question. But question number one that I will spike the football on, drop the microphone, and scream from the highest tops of the mountains is, you don't know who's electing your people in this country. This is an effed up situation. Pardon my French, but that's what it is. And that's the situation we're in. Now, get the message out, and the American people need to demand that this is fixed. And the one thing I know about politicians is if enough people want something done, they're going to belly up to it, because they're all panderers to get votes. And if they think that they can benefit and get elected on a platform, they're going to do that. So we got to make campaign finance reform sexy, and then all these these panderers are gonna try to do something about it. Hopefully.
Could you tell us a little bit about Texas, the GOP there? We're Chad and I live in Illinois. There's no GOP here. It's like, oh my God, it's a bunch of fucktards. But tell us about Texas, and is there influence against your incumbent? Are they secretly supporting him? Are you going through any political battles between your own party and trying to be fair and independent? They say that, but they're so full of shit and they do things behind.
Yeah, it's not an incumbent; it's an open seat.
Oh, okay.
So as far as an open seat goes, there's not there's the same there's not an incumbency advantage. Now, the main guy that they wanted to rally around, and I guess I would say there's 9 candidates on the ballot. It's likely going to be a runoff.
Wow, there's 9 candidates?
9 candidates for an open seat. I guess when you have an open seat, people think, hey, this is my chance to be a congressman here and represent CD 32. Now, oddly enough, the majority there's a lot of these people that are on this slate are really not that active. So of the 9 people, I would say the majority are just some people that had the idea of running for Congress. They may not get a full percentage point. It really boils down to 3 people: myself, who lives in the district, who has conservative values and who is not taking dark money, and 2 other candidates who both live outside the district, who I call absentee landlords. One of which the establishment, who is the pretty boy of the establishment, the darling, who is getting the 1.5 million in dark money, the Yarborough campaign, who lives on the shadow of the Oklahoma border, 3 times closer to Oklahoma than he does to this district. Let me say that again. The candidate that the Republican Party has gotten behind never held political office. He sued Brett Hagenbu last time in 2024. He sued this guy after he lost for not living in the district. He lost that lawsuit and turns around and runs a race where he lives when you have a little bit of traffic, 2 hours outside of the district for residency. You think the Democrats may have a little bit of a case with that one? You think the Democrats may not call him a carpetbagger.
Yeah, it's
So,
ridiculous. I don't even
so
know why we allow that shit anyway. I mean, that's a different topic, but I mean, it's like it's ridiculous.
it's
Dude, it
ridiculous.
happens all the time. And in so many states, like remember who was that lawyer, that carpetbagger in Florida, that was we were passing Obamacare. It was the Republican plan is to die quickly. Same thing. He was from out of state, had a property or purchased a property. I think it was just before the election down there, and then ran. And I mean, you got Eric Swalwell right now. He doesn't even have a
Yeah.
house in California, and he's running for governor there. This stuff's got to end.
But you can get away with it if you have enough dark money, and then the dark money who's. When you get personal fundraisers thrown by Peter Thiel, like my opponent has, and Peter Thiel was mentioned, I don't know, just a few times in the Epstein files, I guess, if I get my information correctly. He wants a few data centers in CD32, supposedly. Maybe it makes sense to back a bunch of different candidates. It's kind of like almost like a James Bond uh, kind of story outline where you got somebody trying to put a lot of chips on people. But let's digress. When you have that type of individual throwing you fundraisers and uh, they're fundraising $7,000 per couple to support this candidate. I don't know. You need to start looking into those types of things. I think a little bit, and I believe that that's important for the people here to understand that. And this is the candidate that lives. I mean, his hotel bills, guys, must be just staggering. It has to be just. This guy's been living with a toothbrush in his sock drawer for the last 3 months because he just got in the race. Actually, filed on December 8th, but got actually claims to have started his race on January 5th. Why? So he didn't have to file his campaign finance reform FEC form and could just extend it. I believe that was the issue. But
Yeah.
and then so we didn't have transparency on his personal campaign because he extended his form. And then when he did extend his form, the most recent date, he showed top line revenue, and I didn't see any expenses. If there was expenses in there, I missed it, but I didn't see the expenses. And so his top line number looked pretty good because I didn't see expenses. And so there was a little bit of lack of transparency, I think, in that regard. And this is the kind of thing I think the voters are just actually sick of. But it takes a little bit of bandwidth and a guy with a little bit of money to broadcast that out to the public. Well, we have done that, and he's dropped close to 10 points in a little over a week.
Really?
Because dark money is people like dark chocolate more than they like dark money. Okay, they don't
Very
like dark
true.
money. So this he's actually tanking right now, and I don't think he's actually even going to make the runoff, possibly. And so the darling of the Republican Party might be the first man off Survivor Island.
So
Awesome.
is your primary on March 3rd? If
Yeah.
I saw it right on my AI stuff. You know what's funny is when I was doing my little AI bio on you, I wanted to get a couple words on your competitor, and it said Peter Thiel first. That's why I called Chad before the show. I'm like, wait, is that guy? So he's so involved with your competitor, it popped up when I first did the draft of your bio.
Yeah. Well, that tells you everything you need to know. And I guess my statement that I just made on your show here is supported by AI,
Yeah. Ask Chad. I
right?
called him. It's like I
Yeah.
even told Mike. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Is that rich guy?
We
How's
were
he gonna
double
be
checking it. Yeah.
So with you, I mean, you're down the, you're at the finish line here, right? Well, I mean, what are some of the things you're trying to do aggressively to get your name out there and dog this guy and kind of ugly him up a little bit?
Well, we've run a series of television commercials,
Mhm.
and you have to be able to do that in order to combat this type of race. So we've gone on broadcast, we've gone on a number of different media, we've sent out mailers. Oddly enough, there's another opponent in the race that it's a three-man battle for two spots in the runoff, and my other opponent is also calling them out. And so,
Mhm.
and some of the other smaller guys in the food chain are all uniting against this dark money. So the Yarborough campaign is kind of the he's kind of the the thing that everybody wants to vomit out of CD32 because he lives so far away, and I think people are so disgusted about shams and scams,
Yeah.
and every candidate for the most part is really gravitated to go against them. and mailers have been sent out by multiple different candidates to
Yeah.
expose his dark money. Now, I called him out. If you go on my social media, I called him out on February 17th, and I asked him. I, I called him out prior to that, and he said, "Well, there was no dark money." And then I
Huh.
took the actual sheet of paper, which I have right here, and as I read it off, I think did I read this off to you guys? I think earlier I've done so many interviews I can't
No,
remember.
you didn't.
Yeah. So strong pack C0093
Uh-oh.
7004. This is the pack that supports the Yarborough campaign. And if you look at it, he's got corporations out of Dover, Delaware. That's interesting. The home of Joe Biden over in Delaware. And then you've got
Yeah.
Arlington, Virginia, and Arlington Heights, Upper Arlington, Ohio, that have made now almost $1.5 million in purchases on his behalf.
Oh, well,
I rest my case. He says, I don't know anything about dark money. We put that video all over social media. And I think folks, listen, if you're going to elect somebody to represent you, the first thing you have to believe is that they're telling the truth.
yeah.
Yep.
And if you would have said, yes, I have a pack who's behind me and these are good people, and let me tell you who they are, because I'm proud because they're conservative organizations, and disclose that these were good people,
Yeah.
I think everything would have been cool. I would have been, okay, you raised some money, you got some big conservative groups that are behind you. But when you refuse to disclose to the people who is funding you and you lie about it, and repeatedly, and multiple people and other candidates are sending this out in addition to myself, this guy's political career he's toast. People don't want any more lies in politics. Politics is already a disgusting business. Why do you want to start off with your new congressman as a carpetbagger who's lying about his dark money? It smells to high heaven, and I think the Yarborough campaign is a sinking ship.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, being that he lives out of the district is huge, and the dark money, you guys got to just pummel his ass with that, and that should be enough, man. Especially you got those other candidates doing it,
Yeah.
that, you know. And then I guess you got Chad down there now. Holy shit, you're gonna win for sure.
And and the real people, I think, that are going to be embarrassed are the people that made these endorsements because they were leveraged to, because they did them across the board for the strong arm machine that said, drop this endorsement. And just like clockwork, you look at another candidate, De La Cruz, who's also being funded by the Strong Pack. It gets a little bit more insidious. It's not just me complaining about Yarborough's campaign. When you start seeing the similar type endorsements drop at the similar times, it becomes a playbook.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the American people and the people of Texas, if you understand that, you want to be played. Well, there's a playbook, a formula that's being put out to get these certain types of endorsements to drop and get the support. Get the Abbott support early, and then you get some of the the folks over in DC, and you drop the similar type endorsements on similar timelines for similar candidates that have a similar background that are both in the Air Force. And you know you can't make this stuff up. In a way, I wish I was, because I would feel better about our country, but
Yeah.
you can't make this stuff up. And so that's what people have to go to bed with and wrestle with is the thumb on the scale.
Have you guys debated yet? Any like, did you have like all my people debate, or how did that work?
Yeah, so we have these things here in Texas called forums where they don't really allow for the candidates to really go back and forth and get after it. I think that's a disservice, because I think anybody who's going to be the next congressman, if you're too weak to be able to debate,
Yeah.
right, and let the cream of the crop rise to the top and let the people see who is the most articulate and who is not a product of a Hollywood campaign, the
Mhm.
people, that's where we are right now. And to just have questions that can be rehearsed, and some of these candidates, I can tell you exactly what they're going to say when and they don't even have to answer the question. They'll just have this, it's like a
Mhm.
Ken and Barbie doll. You pull a string and it's like, yeah, we all got scar tissue, it's time to go on offense. We need to go back on offense. The United States has been, da, 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 da. I drove a pickup truck at Stanford, da, 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 da. It's the same rhetoric. And what it becomes is it's like hitting a button on a tape recorder, and the people they get this little sound bite from the different candidates, but you're not really going back and forth where you can actually have a debate. I think Americans need to get that real aspect where we actually debate each other and ideas separate the candidates, and being able to show strength of ideas and also honesty and integrity based on the words that you say, that the public can actually vet out. This is something that's not done in our political system, but needs to be done desperately, because it can't just be sound bites and it can't be Hollywood. It needs to be real. And we are so far from real. It's sad.
Yeah. What and you're because we're from Illinois or we're northerners here. What like your district, where is it with relation to Dallas? Like what
So part of Dallas, this district runs where the eastern part of Dallas is in the district, and it goes all the way out to almost Louisiana.
holy
So it's
cow.
a long slice. It kind of just goes, and we start from cities like Carrollton, and then we move across from Carrollton to Richardson and Saxe,
Oh,
and then
I
you
have
get
friends.
over, and you got some Dallas proper area, and then you got Rockwall County, which is the home that I reside in, is Rockwall County. It's the smallest county in the state of Texas, but it is a great place to live. And then you've got Rains County, you got a little bit of Hunt County, Wood County, Upshur County, Camp County. It's a total of 8 counties, not full, but partial counties that are in this, along with some counties in their entirety. And that is the district. It's about 770,000 people. We anticipate, if we're lucky, to have maybe 10% turnout in the Republican primary. Um, Voting so far has been very low. We
Mhm,
hope that people vote very heavily on March 3rd. I
mhm.
think that we should have a national, or we should have an election day where, we encourage people to vote, and everybody gets out and votes on election day. I don't love this whole early voting
Yeah,
thing
it's
where,
bullshit.
you
Yeah.
got 10, people are casting their votes, 2 weeks before the election is even played out. To
Mhm.
me, you're not making an informed decision. And again, it's about getting all the information. I bet there's a lot of people that voted for
Mhm.
this
Pretty much.
absentee landlord wannabe that are
Yeah,
sitting there saying, "How do I
really.
retract that vote?"
Yeah. Yeah, before you guys started, exposing them. Yeah, it's I wish we do it this, election day as well, and there's so much cheating and corruption. I'm also worried about the media, the mainstream media, what's going on with ICE. They're just hammering us because they're only showing in the mainstream media the perspective of what they want to show and not showing the officers being pummeled and attacked. And I'm concerned because, there's people that came our way, people that were independents or people, union people, my friends from the Southwest side that were Democrats are now, awakening, but then they see this shit over and over again, right? And
Emotional blackmail.
it's bad, right? Because they're showing a tainted view of the reality. And what happened was the Democrats owned this. They opened the borders, they pushed them in here, and now our agents in these blue states and cities, instead of sending 2, 3, 4 guys to get one illegal, they gotta spend 4 times the labor to protect the officers that are doing their job. So we're paying more money because of the Democrats, and we had to pay for them in the first place.
Yeah, that was my commentary on why I think we should have been a little stronger here in Texas, because look at the damage that's been done now to the
Yeah.
Republican Party, and also the financial damage that's been
Yeah.
done to the taxpayer, to have to round these individuals up now that are free and loose. It's like a spill. If you can contain the spill before it gets all over the place, it's a lot better than letting it get all over the place and then trying to clean it up.
Mhm.
That's immigration.
Yeah.
And we could contain it at the border. It's going to be way less invasive, and it's going to be way less costly. And we needed to do whatever it takes to make sure that that was done, but it wasn't. Instead, we bust people in. And again, I was wrong to think, hey, yeah, let's stick it to them. Uh, but at least I can admit I was wrong to be happy about that, because
Mhm.
it's about being right and not sticking to your guns when you're wrong, to be wrong multiple times. It's about, okay, yeah, I thought it was cool. Now I don't. Let's never do that again. Let's adjust, because the cost of doing that to our American taxpayer is
Yeah.
just just
Yeah. And
just just too much. And the optic is bad too. Now we got a bad optic
we
rounding these
do.
people up.
It's, like, awful. They're winning that. They
Yeah.
are absolutely winning that, which sucks. I live in the western suburbs, and Chad knows Oak Brook Mall, high-end mall. God, I know the chief there. In just over a year, they arrested 120 Venezuelans in the heat of it. 120 Venezuelan coordinated, organized shoplifting in a fancy mall, and they're breaking into houses and stuff around here. And I know it's kind of sick, but I was kind of liking it because it's all leftist where I live, all leftist. I have events here, and they're screaming. My neighbors, by the way, we sold our house this week. We're gonna rent for a year, and we're gonna move to Texas or somewhere warm. I don't know where we're gonna go. We just sold the house. I want to get the hell out of this shithole. But these these leftist scumbags are yelling at my guests, calling them Nazis and stuff. I live in a high end neighborhood, and they come on the front porch. No,
If they,
it's like I want to get the hell out of this place.
if they really want to be effective, why don't they call them Fauci's?
Yeah, right,
I mean, more
right.
murder.
Yeah, even you guys in Texas are still dealing with the aftermath of the open borders. I mean, look at Eagle Pass or Colony Ridge. I mean, I don't understand why ICE isn't there going door to door, rounding them up and kicking them right back over the border. We need to start getting aggressive and not just going after the criminals, but going after everybody else. And we got about 30 million people to deport, so we're less than 10% of the way through that. And we really need to shut down all immigration for at least the next 10 years afterwards and allow some time for assimilation again. Because this cannot continue like this. We're just going to have to shut these leftists down. They don't have a valid viewpoint. I mean, the State of the Union definitely made that abundantly clear on Tuesday. But you can't have a country that doesn't have borders. We have to maintain a common language, culture, and borders in order to remain a actual nation.
Mhm.
Well, Michael, I think that's the point, and that's the point that the globalists are trying to make. You
Yeah.
can't have a country without borders, and that's what they want.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't want countries.
So,
They just
Paul,
want one
sorry.
world.
So why you want to do a closing statement, a little mini commercial for why people down there should vote for you, and Chad's going to take that and make that clip go viral down by you.
Yeah. Well, I would just say this: the American people, the people of Texas, we've all been burned so many times that be careful. I don't blame people for not listening to the words that I say right away, because we've all been betrayed. But because we are betrayed and have been betrayed, that is why I'm running for office. I'm fed up with the scams, the shams, the kangaroo courts, and I'm willing to say, listen, it's not about, stop listening to what people are saying. Start looking at the actions. Start looking at who is paying for the elections. Start looking at the dark money. You cannot serve two masters. The only person that I serve is the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm not controlled by PACs. I'm not controlled by somebody else's money. I've worked my butt off for 2.5 decades to earn my money legally in order to use my money to have the independence to run my campaign. I don't have to lick boots to be able to get money to become some puppet proxy sham guy as a carpetbagger that's living Lord knows how many miles out of the district. It's about 2 hours. And as an absentee landlord, that's what you're going to have. And everybody knows that a property that's managed by an absentee landlord that has to basically kiss what for dark money is not going to be what we need in CD 32. What we need is, this election is about the people. It's about the families that are in here. My family lives here. That means my family is accountable. I want my kids to have a name where when they go to school, they're not going to get roasted. They're not going to get razzed. If I'm a bad leader, my kids are going to be held accountable, because people are going to be mad that their dad let them down. And I don't want to let my kids down. You know what I want to do? I want to make my kids proud. And that means I want to have my kids have a strong, good name that they can rely on. That's something that you cannot buy. That is something that you can only earn. And in an election cycle where people are used to buying seats and buying elections, this is something that is very, very different as far as an approach. Now, I understand that people are hesitant to believe these things, but just look at the facts. I live here. I chose to be here. I already love being among the people. And somebody else that doesn't live here has not made that investment. How can you ask somebody to vote for you when you can't even vote for yourself? Right?
That's great.
And so,
Yeah.
lastly, I would say this: I'm pro-gun, I'm pro-life, I'm pro-constitution. I want to ban Sharia law. I believe that this is the greatest country in America, but if we don't act, we're one generation away from losing it. And right now it's go time. And right now we need to act, and we need to make sure that we're not overrun by illegals here. We got to make sure that we have a constitution that's followed, and we don't need more government For every new bill that these guys on Capitol Hill want to put through, I think we should get rid of 2 old ones.
Yeah.
A good start.
It's about unshackling ourselves out of the government, having some financial restraint, and being able to work for the people, not for yourself.
Yeah,
I've already worked for myself. Now it's time. As I told my wife, I said the first half of my life was about me and building my company. Second half of my life, it's about other people, and that's where I'm at in life, because time is the most valuable currency that we have. Material things, they just take your time away on this earth. And I'm no longer in the game of pursuing material possessions. I'm up pursuing something much bigger than that. And that's why I'm running.
That was good. Thank you. Well, geez, I wish you the best. I mean, it's right around the corner here. So imagine you guys are gonna be running around like crazy for the next week or two.
I've been running around for crazy for the last 3 months. So
Yeah.
why stop now, right?
Yeah.
Good luck, Paul. Thank you. Thanks for being on. I appreciate it and wish you the best.
Terry, God bless you. Mike, Michael, we're honored to be part of your show, and hopefully we'll have good news in about 4 or 5 days.
Yes, I'll be talking to Chad. Thank you, man.
All right.
Well, yeah, and thank you for being here, and thank you to our audience. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. And we'll be back next week with even more. Thanks again, guys.